Hello everyone and welcome to my studio. My name is Kristen Olson and I'm going to show you how to paint a very loose, I'm going to show you how to draw and paint a very loose, fresh, colorful floral arrangement. So let me get started. This is Fabriano Artistico paper. This is my TWSBI Diamond 580 pen with Diatramentis archival ink in it, and I have my Rembrandt watercolors, a custom set I created on the side. So when people do floral arrangements, they get very caught up in the details of the flower, and this arrangement is such a free looking arrangement that I thought it would be fun to just kind of show you how to really be loose with your drawing. And you'll notice my paper is blank and I'm not even drawing with pencil first. I'm just going to start with pen. So I'm going to start with just some of the leaves. So I like the curve of the stem of this little leaf that's kind of upside down. Instead of trying to really draw the shape of the leaf, I'm drawing what I call its essence, just kind of the curve of the edges of the leaves and so on, and the way that the stem kind of comes forward. Then over here I've got some kind of big green shapes, and there's a beautiful little violet flower, and I will draw a circle for the center of that. And the petals are hanging down. Over on the right is a pretty flower that's some kind of flower, I don't know what it is, but it's pink and it has beautiful petals, and it's also a downward facing flower. Then there are some pretty lilac flowers that are shooting up and out. So the thing with floral arrangements is the movement in them. You know, you have some rounded shapes that are a little more stagnant, like this pink flower at the top. And see how kind of loose and wiggly my lines are? That's fine. So the contrast of those kind of rounded shapes, and then the pointy leaves, and then you have the shape of this flower, which is a little bit more elongated. And just kind of having that variety of some stems that kind of go straight up like this, and then you kind of break the line and make it lean a little bit. So I've got movement coming down this way. I forgot to put the stem on that one, so there it is. And some green leaves here. So I have movement going in all directions from the center. And then the center is broken up by this beautiful leaf that's kind of curled over. And also another thing you should try to do is not get too concerned if your lines overlap a little bit. You'll find that once you start painting, the lines disappear a little bit, and what's left of them really becomes a part of your artwork, and it makes it more interesting, especially if some of them don't look perfect and looks like, oh, you might have erased that if it was in pencil, but it's in pen, so you can't. And that's okay. That just adds to the interest and beauty of your work. And if you can get comfortable with that philosophy being behind your drawing and painting techniques, you'll have a lot more fun, and you'll feel free to make art out of your mistakes, if you want to call them mistakes. But it's also your thought process. So just kind of living with some of those, I keep wanting to call them mistakes, and I know that's not the right word, but some of those delayed decisions or something like that. Once you learn to live with those and kind of see them as it's part of your art process, and you're sort of revealing that process to the viewer, then I think you might feel more comfortable with this whole procedure. And mind you, I can draw and paint and make something perfect. I have those skills, but I find that I enjoy looking at artwork that's a little looser and freer and more expressive rather than perfect. And so because I enjoy that more, that's how I tend to want to draw and paint myself. Okay, so there are some flowers. I'm not quite done with that yet, but I wanted to move on to the vase. So I'm just going to start by making a line for the bottom of where I want the vase to be. And this is a picture, so I'm just going to make that motion there. And the rounded sides, make that one a little bit wider, and it has a little bit of a base. And you can't really see it too well in this picture, but there is a little bit of a cast shadow. So I'm just going to make kind of an organic looking shape to show the shape of the bowl, or the vase, I mean, and the flowers kind of coming out of it just like that. Now there's two little salt and pepper fox heads. I'm not going to put those in. They're cute, but not for today. And there's a little purple flower there, and then I want to put one more pink flower at the top. And so I'm looking at this and I'm noticing that there's white paper all the way around. Nothing is going off the page. And I think to add to the movement of this and make it more dramatic, I'm going to have this purple flower go off the page there. I'm going to have this pink stalk one go off the top. So I have some movement here and movement there. I'm going to put one more purple flower kind of coming up here. And I'm going to bring these fern looking, I don't know what they are, it's some kind of green fern looking thing, take that right off the side of the canvas as well. I just want this to be filled out. There's a lampshade behind it in the picture, so you could make something with that if you want, or not. Doesn't really need it. So this lesson is just mostly about how to kind of loosen up, how to get some ideas for how to loosen up. Okay, so now I'm going to draw a couple stripes on the vase. And I'm planning to do the turquoise stripes, but I'm not planning to do the little black details, just because I don't think that really adds to the painting. Just my opinion. You can if you want to. Okay, so now I'm going to sign it, and then I'm going to start the painting. So you've probably heard this philosophy before. If you want to loosen up, get a bigger brush. And so I am going to demonstrate today with a number 12. This is a black velvet brush. I typically use a number 6, so you can see the size difference is pretty significant. But I'm just going to show you how to paint with this brush. If you have a big brush that's a round brush like this with a good point, which is usually when they're newer, you can actually do some pretty fine details. The benefit of painting with a bigger brush too is that it holds more pigment and water in the bristles here, and it slowly releases them down to the point. And so you don't have to keep going back to pick up more paint all the time. You can just have it stored in your brush a little more easily. So I'm picking up some permanent yellow lemon and sap green. And I'm going to just start right in with the greens. And I'm going to do some mixing on the paper as well as some mixing on my palette. So I'm going to just pop in some of these greens, and you can see I haven't gone back for any more paint, and I still have my brush loaded with paint. So I'm going to just kind of keep moving around here. This is that fern looking thing. So you can see with the point of this brush, I'm making just some kind of loose little strokes, and you can see that I'm getting really pretty fine lines. Okay, so I'm going to rinse my brush off, and I'm going to grab some of this permanent lemon yellow, which is it's tinted a little bit green because I put my brush in it with the green painted. So I'm just going to drop some of this yellow in here while it's still wet, and same thing for here in this leaf. I just want to have the leaf show that it has two sides. So there's that. And let's see, where else is some of that pretty yellow green? Ah, down here. This is a really pretty color. And I've got some green here and here. So I won't finish all of the greens, but I just wanted to get them started. And I'm thinking about just kind of, you know, just going around and around the painting and adding the little bits of green. Okay, so now I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to grab some of this pink. So this is quinacridone rose reddish, and I'm going to start with this beautiful pink flower here on the side. And it's pink, but it also has some red. And so I'm going to add some of this pretty deep red that I have, which is permanent red deep. and also some of this permanent red violet, just to get a little bit darker center. And I'm going to do the same thing for this red flower on this side. So you can see I'm not trying to paint in my lines, I'm just painting. So now I'm going to use a lot of water and a tiny bit of pigment, and I'm not touching the red, just putting some of that lighter pink color underneath the flower. And now I'm going to use that same light color with lots of water for this beautiful flower at the top. So whenever you want to have a lighter color, you just use more water. And whenever you want more pigment, or when you want a color darker, just grab more pigment. So I'm going to pick up some of this permanent red violet and put that down for the first layer of paint on this kind of elongated flower. So this is a really pretty one. It has some blue violet at the edges. So this is phthalo blue red shade. So I'm just putting a little bit of that out at the edges. And I'm going to mix it with pink, my quinacridone rose. And this way it's more dynamic. I think doing some mixing of colors on the paper definitely adds to the looseness and freshness of the painting. And I don't know what other medium you can do that with. You can do it a little bit with acrylic if you have a lot of water and you have your acrylics thinned out almost like watercolor, but you definitely can't paint this way with oils. You can give oils a loose feeling, but you can't get the paint to flow. It only does what you make it do. If you push it around, that's what you'll get, but it just doesn't move on its own. So here's the pink flower that's going right off the top of the canvas, and I want to make sure, even though in the photo the pink flower is almost the same color as this lighter one, I want to make sure that in my painting it separates, so I've made it a bit darker. And I'm putting some more violet colors here in the center. And this is another pretty elongated flower. So just putting that light pink color down first, and now I'm going to go back and add some of this beautiful blue. If you don't have phthalo blue red shade, you can also use cobalt blue or ultramarine. Cobalt blue ultramarine is also a color. Anyway, any cool blue, any blue that sort of leans towards violet on the color wheel. So here's some more purple flowers. Notice how this brush is making it easy to do this painting too. It's just very easy to hold lots of paint, grab colors, and make bright, kind of pretty shapes. Now I'm going to jump into using some blue green. So I'm going to use phthalo green, and it's a little bit bluer than any of the greens on my painting, but that's okay. I'm just going to start with it, and then I'm going to add some yellow and some sap green to the blue green to balance that color and make it work with the painting. So I'm rinsing my brush now. I'm going to pick up some of this cadmium, excuse me, this is not cadmium, it's azo yellow medium. So I use cadmium too, but this is a really nice, more transparent version of this same yellow, and it's cadmium free, which is better. You don't have to worry about any toxicity that you would with regular cadmium paints. So this is the colors mixing around together on the paper. So I really like this this yellow-green mixture, and I'm going to add a little bit of pyro orange to it, make it a little warmer. And I'm going to add that color to these stems. So that's really pretty. And I'm going to grab some transparent oxide red now and put that on these stems as well. And just kind of looking back and forth at my reference photo. You can still see I'm still using the same brush. This is the number 12, and you can see that it's still giving me really nice lines and broad strokes when I need it. Okay, so back to the greens. I'm going to pick up some sap green and some phthalo green, and I want to just put a few more greens and bring some of these beautiful leaves down. And again, look how I'm not making an actual leaf shape. I'm just letting the color kind of flow in a downward motion. Now I'm going to pick up this transparent permanent yellow, and I've mixed it with yellow ochre. So I want to make sure I have a variety of greens. I'm putting these nice yellow colors here. I think I want some yellow there, and some yellow kind of coming out from behind this red flower. And that has a nice green stem. And this has some beautiful darks in here before it enters the vase. And there's some real dark centers, or some dark marks in the center that I want to make. So I've mixed up transparent oxide red and phthalo blue red shade and a little bit of this dark green, the sap green mixture that I made. So a good 3-color dark is an earth color like transparent oxide red or burnt sienna or burnt umber, plus a violet or a blue, like a deep blue, like a blue that leans towards violet on the color wheel, not one that leans towards green necessarily, and a red. So you could also use yellow ochre in place of burnt sienna, but that usually makes a lighter dark than you get if you use burnt sienna or burnt umber or transparent oxide red. Okay, so there's that. Now I'm going to jump down to the vase before I go back and put in more details. Now I'm going to use phthalo blue green shade, which is a beautiful turquoise, and I'm starting my line from the right, and I'm going to get more pigment because I want it to be nice and dark. So the right side is darker and the left side is lighter. So I'm keeping the color fairly dark across here. And then what I'm going to do is rinse my brush and just come back with plain water and pull the color to the side. So I'm just pulling the pigment right out of the color that I put on the paper. So I've got a really nice, pretty gradation from dark to light. So next I want to paint the shadow under the vase. I'm going to use phthalo blue red shade plus permanent red violet plus yellow ochre. And that'll give me a nice, pretty gray violet. And I'm going to put that underneath, coming right up to the bottom of the vase. And I do paint right over my signature sometimes. No big deal. So I want to get that rounded shape of the vase. Get the rounded shape on this side. Put a few little random strokes. To kind of get that loose feeling too in a painting, you want to leave some gaps of white. And you also want to make a few strokes that are disconnected from the whole big shape. So you've got this one big shape, but then you want to have a few strokes that are part of the shape, but there's no paint connecting this stroke to the mass of strokes, if that makes sense. Just kind of gives your painting a little bit of an airy feel, and I think it's just prettier and more interesting, and I'm always going for interesting over just being pretty. Okay, so I'm going to bring some of the shadow color underneath the vase to kind of accentuate the bottom. And I'm going to let that dry for now. I am going to come back and put some of the same shadow color on the right side of the vase so that it matches up, so that the white goes from white to darker white on this side and this side, and that'll match up with the value of the blue that I've put there. So I saw I didn't paint this little purple flower yet, and I need to do that. So I'm going to grab some of this permanent red violet and paint that. Now I'm going to start putting some details on the flowers at the top. So here's some, oops, sorry, I bumped my camera. So this is a mixture of Pyro Orange and Azo Yellow Medium. And I'm going to put a little tiny bit of that in the center of that flower. And right at the kind of where these elongated flowers meet the center of the arrangement. Now I'm going to pick up some more of this pretty permanent lemon yellow. And I want to just drop in a little bit of yellow here and there in the painting because I just think it makes it look so beautiful. And just kind of putting that in almost like it's light coming from the left, but also from the back. Just kind of makes the painting glow a little bit, doesn't it? Isn't that pretty? I'm going to pick up some more of this orange color. So I do definitely make it a point too to go through my artwork and make sure that I've used all the colors that I want to use in it. Sometimes I'll forget, you know, to put orange in or something like that, and I'll kind of look at my painting and sort of have a little conversation with it in my head, just trying to ask a visual question of it. You know, does it need orange, or will it be okay without it? And so that's just kind of how I go through my painting. It's sort of a organic way to paint. It's a responsive way to paint. So I'm sort of responding to what I see in front of me. And I always have somewhat of a plan in mind for how to proceed through my painting, but sometimes I deviate from that and I just kind of respond to the painting itself. And that's really the best way to paint. You don't want to get too stuck and have too much of a formula when you're painting. You want to make sure that you free yourself to just kind of respond to what you see and paint accordingly. I'm going to add a couple of accents with a mixture of red and pink to these flowers. So accents meaning I want to just define the petals a little bit as they come out from the center, like that. And I'm going to put a few accents on this elongated flower. So the same thing for this flower at the top. If anybody knows what these flowers are, please post it in the comment. I would love to know what they are. I think they're cosmos, but I'm not sure. They kind of look not as delicate as cosmos usually look, which is why I think maybe there's something else, but they're so pretty. Okay, so a little more pink. I feel like this flower needs a little accent. So sometimes when you paint in a loose fashion like this, you use a little more water than you normally would if you were painting with a drier brush. And so what happens when you use more water is more of the paint sinks into the paper. And so it looks great when it's wet, but then when it's dry, it doesn't look like it did when it's wet. And so you need to go back and add a little more color. And that's okay too, because paintings that are made with layers of paint are always prettier to look at. They have more depth, and they look more like paintings. I always worry that, especially painting with more transparent colors, that my painting is going to look like it was done with markers or something. And I want it to definitely look like it's done with paint and with purpose. So another thing I want to do now is add some darker strokes. I'm going to take a little bit of water off my brush by just rolling this onto the paper towel. But this ferny thing here needs some definition. So just within the big shape, I'm just adding some definition here. And I'm going to do the same thing with this leaf. Just kind of make them look more three-dimensional. So always remember that rule: value creates dimension. And then you will always remember that if something doesn't look three-dimensional, it's because there isn't enough contrast and value, meaning the darks and lights are too close together on the value scale, and they need to be further apart. So I'm going to add one more bit of kind of bright pink up here. So you're probably looking at this and thinking, well, it looks a little bit like the reference photo, but not that much. And that's okay. It looks like a nice painting, and that was my goal. Okay, so now I'm going to put the shadow color. Oops, I got the wrong glue. I want to put the shadow color on the vase. So I'm going to mix quinacridone rose, yellow ochre, and phthalo blue red shade. So whatever palette you're working with, you want to play around with your combinations of red, yellow, and blue and come up with a gray that works really well for you. So this is a nice gray that's slightly warmer, than what is in the shadow. And I'm going to pull that right up under these leaves and put it on this side of the vase. And then I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to pull this, just like I did with the blue, I'm going to pull this right over to the left side and just smooth this out a little bit, although I didn't mean to bring it on that side of the vase. There we go. And I'm going to add a little bit of warmth on this side. So I'm just dropping in the slightest little bit of Azo Yellow Deep. So the other thing that creates dimension is temperature. So value creates dimension and temperature creates dimension. So if you have cool temperatures in the shadows, you want to have some warm temperatures in the lights. And I'm going to add a little additional dark on this side, just to emphasize that ever so slightly. There we are. So one thing I didn't do in my drawing is draw the table. So in the reference photo, it's sort of a rectangular table. So rather than put a straight line through the bottom third, which would be okay, I thought it would be better to just do this curved arc. And because I want the table to be white, I don't want to paint this white part. I want to leave that white because I like how it looks with the shadow. But I am going to paint a color behind the table just to show, I just don't want this line to be an unpainted line. I want there to be a color back there. So what would be a good color? You could use the same shadow color in the background, or you could have yellow. You wouldn't want to have green because you've got a lot of green in the composition of flowers. You wouldn't want to have pink because there's already a lot of pink and purple there. So, and you wouldn't want to have turquoise because that would compete with the vase. But I actually think yellow would be kind of nice. So let's try yellow, but it's going to be a grayed down yellow. So I'm mixing Azo Yellow Medium, and I've mixed it with a little bit of the pink and a little bit of this blue. And I want to see how that looks. So I'm just going to start from the left side and go along the edge of the table. And I'm going to rinse my brush now and pull the color up with a little bit of water. So it's separating nicely from the vase. It's separating nicely from the foreground shadow color. And I'm going to pull some of that up to the top here, just very lightly, bringing it in through the flowers. And I really like how this looks. It's not taking away from the foreground at all. It's really soft and pretty, and it's working really nicely with this whole composition. Now I am going to use a little bit of this, more of this lemon yellow, just putting that in here and there. add these are just some finishing touches I want to do. Sometimes I do them after the video. I'll put a few extra finishing touches, and then sometimes I do them during the video, and that's what I'm doing today. I want to get some more of that blue color coming out of there. And I just love this turquoise. You know, it looked so strong before, but now with the yellow mixed in, it looks very well matched with what's here. And last but not least, I'm going to put a little more of this rose color, just kind of filling in a few spaces with this rose color. And it's mixed with quite a lot of water, so it's going on pretty lightly. And if it mixes with some of the yellow, that's okay too. And we'll give this flower a stem. And add a couple more stems. And we'll call it a painting. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this, this painting lesson on how to paint a loose, colorful floral painting. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to my channel. And if you want even more painting lessons, join me on Patreon. Happy painting, everyone.